buddy. Smoked him. Got him.
He's right there, he's dead. He's done right there.
We've been doing way more hanging hunts this year. It seems like every time we've been out, just about, we've had the muddies on and the quick sticks. First time is key when trying to kill one of these bucks, and it was definitely the case this morning. Very first time in, and caught him completely by surprise. I think that's a big key, especially when you're hunting heavily pressured public land deer that you know, don't like human scent too much. Is you got to get in there and get it done that first time.
Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Hoyt Archery, Fuse Accessories, Realtree, Muddy Outdoors, Cabela's, Rocket Broadheads, Scott Archery, Frigid Forage, Trophy Rock, Easton Arrows, RTP Outdoors, Non-Typical Wildlife Solutions, Ozonics, Wilderness Athlete, Grizzly Coolers, Redneck Hunting Blinds, and Nikon.
Over the years, the style of hunting on public land has evolved quite a bit, and as you can see, we're doing more hang and hunt setups now, and the reason for that is to be more mobile, to have the element of surprise, and it takes a lot of work to set up stands. As in previous years, we used to set up multiple stands on different pieces of public land to have them throughout the season. It was just a lot of work. And now, by doing more hang and hunt setups, it allows us to be more mobile, to do observation sets first, possibly, and then to move in after that. And it's proven to be an effective tactic for us. Aaron shot his on a hang and hunt. I shot mine. John had a great encounter, which led to the timber nest series of hunts.
So which I was hanging and hunting in that same location, bouncing around. And that's one of the things that we like so much is once we find an area that's hot, we can move according to wind direction. Even if we're still hunting that same location, we're not limited to one stand site. This year we were able to go into some areas and hunt out of trees that didn't have a lot of cover in them, but had no, deer detect us up in the tree, whether that was seeing us or smelling us. We had a lot of really good success by going into spots, even in the dark, a lot of times hanging in trees that we'd never been to before, and a lot of times having shot opportunities. And if you hunt the same spot year after year, some of the deer seem to catch on to it, especially does. And when we were doing this hang and hunt style of hunting, a lot of times the deer had no idea we were in the area, even if we were in a pretty open tree. So I think the element of surprise is super important.
We get a lot of questions about how we do this, how we pack it in, how you hang in the dark. It sounds a lot more intimidating than what it really is, but if you get a good system down, which you're going to show here, you have the right equipment, it can be a really quick and easy setup and a really effective way to hunt.
And all it takes is a little bit of practice, so we're going to teach you how you do it here. This is our go-to setup for the hang and hunts. This is the Muddy Vantage stand with 4 muddy quick sticks, and Aaron did a how-to video about how we actually pack this stuff together. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how we pack it up and keep it compact, you can check out that video on the website. So you've got to the base of the tree that you're going to be putting your stand in, and now it's time to really start slowing down and taking your time and being quiet. So first step is get all of the equipment off of the stand and separated. The nice thing about this Vantage stand is that it has this Vantage bracket, and I use this to strap these sticks down onto the stand. Keeps everything compact, it's not going to move around, it's not going to make any noise. This ratchet will get this stuff really tight on here, and you're not going to make any noise when you're walking in when it's bouncing. I like to keep the stand leaned up against my knee. That way when I pull that bracket off, I know these sticks aren't going to fall down and make a bunch of noise, and then you simply just pop them off of there and separate them out. You can be pretty quiet doing that with that Vantage bracket. Remember, when I'm hanging this stand, my number one goal is efficiency. So once I start going up, I don't want to have to keep coming back down. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using my safe line to tie these steps different levels down the rope. That way, as I'm going up, I can just pull that rope up, untie one, and pop a new one on the tree without having to go back down. Of course, the last thing that I'm going to tie to this rope is the stand, and it's always nice to have another actual pull-up rope on the other side to have your bow or whatever it may be tied to. That way you're not having to go down at all. So hopefully you can just make it up all in one trip. Always make sure that you have your bracket in a pocket that's easily accessible, because once you get to the top, that's the first thing that you're going to put on, and it's going to make hanging that stand a lot easier. These Muddy Quick Sticks are really nice. They're really sturdy and they're super easy to use. All you got to do is wrap this rope around the tree, put it through the cam lock, put a little pressure to let that stick seat down into the tree, and then to make sure that that rope doesn't come out of that cam lock, I'll just put a little knot in there. You know that's not gonna move. That thing's super sturdy. So when you're doing hang and hunt setups, the number one thing is to be safe. Just take your time and use the proper safety equipment. One of the things that we always use and is gonna make this process a lot easier is the lineman's rope. Once I put that first stick up there, I'm gonna lock myself in with that lineman's rope, and that's gonna allow me to lean back on the tree and be hands-free. I don't have to be holding on to the tree. It makes putting these sticks and the stand up a lot easier and a lot safer. So what I'll do generally is I'll stand on the first steps of the two-piece quick stick, and then I'll untie my first stick. When I'm putting these sticks up, I make sure that my feet are on the bottom of the two pegs. The reason I like doing this is just from past experiences. I know if I put my chest up against that stick and wrap it around and get it locked in at about that level, I'm not going to be too unevenly spaced on my steps. So I'll lean into it, lean back up against my rope here, lock it in, push it down, put my knot in, and keep moving up. So once you've got your last stick in, then the next step is putting the bracket in. A lot of times I'll stay below that last step, get my bracket out, and put it at a level that's going to allow me to step into that tree stand without having to step too far up. The nice thing about this bracket that I like compared to other style stands is once you've got this thing up, you don't have to reach around the tree anymore. So you're not at risk of dropping your stand, making a bunch of noise, or if you're hunting with somebody else like we are, you're not risking dropping that stand on somebody. Once you've got this thing around the tree, it's super easy to set your stand into that bracket. A lot of people worry about how much noise ratchet straps make, but when I'm putting these things up, I always just make sure that I pull it through as tight as I can. That way I only have to, ratchet down a minimal amount of time. And if you go slow enough, it's you can actually make it quiet enough that it's not going to alert any deer. Now that you've got your vantage bracket up and secure, this is a huge tip that I've messed up a lot. If you don't have your lineman's rope above where you're going to put that stand, you get kind of stuck in there when you latch the stand in and your lineman's rope is below the bracket. So make sure you have it up above that bracket. That way you can put your stand in there and strap it down and not have to worry about getting stuck. Now I've pulled my stand up and I don't untie it yet because in the off chance that I do drop it, I don't want to have to go down. It's still tied in there, and all I have to do is I take this little peg that's on the vantage stand and put it in that bracket, and I've already got my stand hung up in the tree. To make sure that this bottom strap is super tight, I'll generally pull up just a little bit, pull it all the way tight, and then let that stand seat down on the tree. And once you've got it that tight, it's not going anywhere. Now that we're locked into the tree, all you got to do is pull your bow up and you're hunting. If you got the right equipment and you do a little bit of practice with this, you can probably do this setup from ground to hunting in less than 10 minutes. The number one goals are being quiet and being efficient. And when you've got that system tied all together, that way you don't have to keep going up and down the tree, it's going to make it a lot faster for you. So if you're hunting public land or you just want to be a little bit more mobile of a tree stand hunter, check out the Muddy products. They're really great for this hang and hunt style. And hopefully some of these tips that we showed you today will help you become a more successful mobile hunter.
We've had a lot of rain over the past few days, so we've had a washout in the fields. I was hoping that we'd be able to get in and start doing some food plot work, but that's just going to have to wait until things dry out now. So I thought this might be a good time to go over one of the common questions that I get from people, or requests, and that is to walk through my trophy room. I don't have all of my deer in one place. In fact, they're scattered all over the place, but I've got most of the biggest ones right here. So let's go ahead and we'll start with this mule deer. 1996, maybe 5, I can't remember now, but I killed this mule deer. And this was in eastern Colorado. I mean, a great hunt, exciting hunt, you know, on foot. Was able to get a 30-yard shot on him, and at the time, I think it might have been one of the biggest mule deer killed with a bow that year, or at least in Colorado. Never did get it officially scored, but that's a big mule deer, one that I'll never forget for sure. Anyway, let's keep moving here. This is a whitetail that I killed in early November 2002. The cool thing about this deer, he's blind on his left side, and the taxidermist was able to find like a glassy type eye that he put in there. So it tells the story, at least it reminds me of the story of the hunt. The deer came past with his blind side toward me, which I thought was pretty cool. I looked down at him and I thought, he can't see me. And I was thinking, now if only something was wrong with his nostrils, you know, where he couldn't smell, he can't see, you know, I got a fighting chance on this one. Well, it was a buck just cruising during the early part of the rut. I was set up on the edge of a doe bedding area, and he came peeling through on the downwind side of that bedding area. So I mean, nothing, you know, too dramatic there. A little bit of an older deer. We had some history with the deer on the farm that I was hunting that year. I don't know exactly how old he was, but probably 5+. This one was a buck that I killed in 1995. This was the first, what I would call big mature buck that I shot. And it was November 7th, my favorite day of the season. He was coming in chasing a buck that was following a doe. And I was hunting a little narrow band of cover. It's just a little kind of narrow strip about 30 yards wide, and they were coming right down through the middle of that. Doe was leading the parade. He was chasing the other buck, and then he chased the other buck right to the base of my tree, and he stopped at the base of my tree. And I'm sure he picked up my scent there. He started walking off real kind of stiff-legged, but I was able to make a good shot on him at about 15 yards and you know, recover him real quick. But for me, it was the first really nice buck that I'd ever killed, so I was pretty excited about that. Great memory. Keep moving here. This is the G5 buck, and if you've been watching Midwest Whitetail for very long, I'm sure you've seen the hunt for this deer. But anyway, he was a giant deer. There had been a doe there that the double G4 buck was following. I was having a bit of a meltdown because he'd been just out of bow range for quite a long time, and they were slowly working their way in, him following this doe. Well, then the G5 buck shows up, gets into a quick fight with the double G4 buck, runs him off, and then comes back looking for that doe. So he's bird dogging and thrashing his way through there, and end up killing him right at the base of the tree. So that was another just unbelievable memory, just because of the two deer, two world-class bucks within bow range, end up killing one of them. And as it turned out, I ended up killing the other one the next year, but we'll get to that in a minute. Keep working our way around here. Okay, here we've got a couple of European mounts. These are the two deer from this past season, two of the three. Skinny's the one on the left, and Lefty is the one on the right. I mean, I've gone through a lot of discussion on these two deer during this past season, so I'm not gonna run back over those hunts. I ended up doing European mounts on those and mounting them on walnut plaques, which made for a pretty cool way to present them. I mean, it's just nice, two big nice deer right here in the office, sitting on top of the bookshelf. It doesn't take up very much space, and you know, it serves my purposes perfectly, which is to remind me of the great hunts that I had and the great memories that I made. We're gonna go in this little room right here. I forgot about this deer. We need to go in here, look at him. Tight Rack 10 I killed this past season, right after Christmas. And again, pretty well documented story. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that, but this deer was a cool one that Nick Munt filmed for the Realtree Outdoors show. Deer came through a little narrow funnel right at the end of a ditch, but he just came right past and offered a nice 25-yard shot. But I think the best memory on that deer was with the recovery with the kids. They were young. They went along and helped to find the buck, and Nick filmed all of that and ended up on the show, which was really pretty cool. So, like I said, these mounts aren't really trophies as much as they are memories. Let's keep moving. Okay, this is a deer that I killed in 2000 in eastern Colorado. It was actually a mule deer hunt, and we spotted this buck, and then we changed gears. The tag that I had was good for any kind of deer, a mule deer or a whitetail. So we changed gears and started going after this guy. The guy who was hosting me, the guide that was taking me on these ranches, he actually did a little soft push or just walked along this creek, and that bumped in my way. So he's running along the edge of the grass field right straight to my tree. I mean, he was literally coming straight at the tree. There's going to be no shot. But at the last second, he saw where I'd bumped my hat off the tree branch, and it was laying at the base of the tree. And he saw that hat, and he locked up, and he turned at a real sharp angle and headed away. Well, I'm at full draw, and sometimes time stands still. And it just seems like a few seconds becomes, a minute. And that's what happened on that hunt. I can remember seeing every little ridge on his back where his vertebrae went through. I can remember when I shot, because he had just turned and was bolting away, but I was already at full draw ready, so I just boom and took the shot. Well, I can remember seeing the hair part on his back as the arrow went into the deer. I mean, it was like slow motion, just hypersensitive to everything. Then as soon as he took off running, then of course everything went right back to normal speed again. But he didn't go very far, so that was a great story. Last, and certainly not least in the office up here, is this buck that we'd call the double G4 buck. I suppose there hasn't been a deer killed that has very much more documentation than this guy did, because he was so visible. And all through the 2012 season, we were doing these daily video blogs of my hunts for this deer. His home range had gotten super small. He was 7 years old, and gosh, I mean, it was pretty nerve-wracking, to have 15,000 people watching over my shoulder every day when I was hunting a deer, but it was pretty exciting too. I mean, it got a lot of feedback. A lot of people, had suggestions of ways that I could hunt the deer differently, and of course, you gotta take everything with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, I knew that I couldn't be aggressive with this buck because he wasn't going anywhere. He was living right in one little small area, and it finally paid off early November and killed this buck. So that's another one that we've documented pretty well over the years here on Midwest Whitetail, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about him. But now we'll head down to the house. There's a few bucks down there actually that I can show you, and I'll wrap up the show from there. These are 3 bucks that we've got up on the wall, the European mounts. The top one is a deer that we had nicknamed Daggers. I killed him in 2011. The next one down is a deer that Drew killed, and I think that was 2010. That's a deer that we had nicknamed Flyers. He killed that with a muzzleloader out of a ground blind. Pretty exciting hunt. The one at the bottom here is one that our daughter killed during the youth season. That was in September of 2012. Her hunt took place over a standing cornfield, and the buck was coming out and checked a scrape and was just getting ready to start, I assume, feeding in the corn. But it was Jordan's biggest, and I think it's the most recent one that she's killed. Now, on the other side of the wall here, this is the deer that we had nicknamed Bubba. And I found this deer dead in November of 2012 after the EHD came through. I would say with a certain amount of confidence that he was 8.5. I actually hit the buck high in 2009 when he ducked the string on me. And he was one of the few that I've hunted on this farm that was a big roamer. A lot of them, they have kind of a little smaller range that they live in. But as an 8-year-old, it seemed like it was closing in, and it was really more or less focused on our farm. So I think I had a decent chance of being able to at least see that deer on the hoof that season if the EHD hadn't gotten him. He died sometime around the middle of September in 2012. So this is basically the rundown of the bucks that I've got around here, at least some of the bigger ones. To me, you know, the memories are what it's all about. Having the trophy on the wall is just a way to bring back those memories. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. We had a washout this past week on trying to get food plots in, so hopefully the weather starts to straighten out. Assuming next week that the weather stays according to plan, we'll be in the fields and be able to bring you a little bit more of the food plot planning and preparation here on the farm. Well, I appreciate you joining me. I'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.